Hey everybody, welcome to What the Flick. Jason, Alonso, Pose, episode 6.
Yeah.
What was that called again? Yes, Love is the Message.
Love is the Message.
Which is that song. Whoever owns the rights to that song got a nice fat check from this episode.
Right.
Because it is wallpapering from front to back. Terrific episode.
It was a great episode.
You know, as much as you love Whitney, my own personal diva is Sandra Bernhard. So I was thrilled that she was on this episode.
Right.
I don't know if there's any way to work that character back in, but I'm for it. So yeah, we get this was the Emmy episode for Pray Tell.
For sure.
For sure.
Absolutely.
You know, Billy Porter gets a couple of numbers. He gets a deathbed scene. It's like, you know, an angry drunk scene. All the stuff.
Yeah.
And he kills it all. We kick off, of course, with the confrontation between Stan's wife and Angel, which I thought was interesting because usually those wife other woman scenes, the wife seems to be holding the cards, but really Angel's the one who's kind of running the table.
True, and you know, Alonso, okay, so that's one part of the story that I could do without. I'm sorry, like the wife, it's so.
When the white people come on this show, it's kind of like,
it's like, wah, wah, wah. Give me the glitz and glam, give me the voguing. Yeah, but I like the chemistry between Stan and Angel. I think that love story, it's just so awesome. I want to see that just grow. Kate Mara's character is just so. Girl, bye. And then
I don't know. I think you're not giving her enough credit. I mean, she's not as interesting as anybody else on this show, but I mean, you could have made that character a lot more sort of two-dimensionally victim-y.
Or more over the top.
Yeah, and I think she's interesting. She understands what's going on. She's not like immediately setting it all on fire, but she's like, okay, you're gonna move into that apartment for 2 months until I decide you can keep the kids.
Okay,
she's got a very controlled way of going about it. She's certainly small enough not to fall for James Van Der Beek's rap.
Right.
So, you know, I think she's got more in her corner.
And
than
she's a little
credit.
accepting too. She asked him, hey, are you a homosexual? Like, I just want to understand what this is because we have children together. So, I mean, she could have easily have gone, and you're right, I take it back. She could have easily gone the way of like, let's pray the gay away, or have been more rancorous in that situation, but whatever, she's there.
And I have to say, what I did like that scene about where the doctor says, all right, I'll give you the HIV test, but it's got to be off the books because the insurance company will flag it.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing that one of the many things that people forget about the 80s was that there was not necessarily the guarantee of privacy with AIDS testing.
Right.
And so that's why a lot of clinics that you know were in the gay community stuff, it was all about anonymous testing. And I remember there were, before that became a thing, there was a sort of a political, a political statement to not get AIDS tested or HIV tested, not because people didn't want to know, but because they knew that information wasn't going to be anonymous, and that legally you could lose your job, you could lose your apartment, all this stuff could happen to you. And so I remember I got into a big fight about this once at a journalist panel because this guy who had written some book about politics or whatever was talking about how irresponsible it was that the gays didn't want to get HIV tests, and I was like, okay, you're completely ignoring the context of the time and what the dangers were for them and why they didn't want to do it. So anyway, I'm glad this show throws in stuff like that as kind of a reminder of how far we've come in a few decades.
They throw in a lot of reminders, Alonso, about, you know, Pray Tell always saying that people, we die, we're easily forgotten about. No one cares when we die. This disease is coming for us all. It's almost as if they're on borrowed time.
Sure.
And you know, when his partner dies, there's just that to me, Alonso, was one of the most heart-wrenching things to see on any show when you watch when any LGBTQ plus person dies of AIDS, or because, you know, we're both in relationships. And I imagine how I would feel if a loved one, a friend, or my husband was on his deathbed because we couldn't save his life because of medication, or we didn't have the resources to do that. So Ryan Murphy's getting it right with that.
Definitely. I mean, I came out in 1988. I feel like I missed the worst of this, but any gay man I know who's like 10 years, 15 years older than me went through that period again. Like he says, they lost everybody around them. They lost all of their friends. They lost everybody in their address book. Address books, kids, were a thing where you would write down the friends of names and numbers because you didn't have a phone that had that information in it. Anyway, so that's a thing where, yeah, I think that generation of survivors really, they survived a war, in that they were surrounded by people and who just one day weren't there anymore.
Right. And how do you reconcile that? I want to give a shout out to Jiggly Caliente. She was also she's a RuPaul's Drag Race alumni. She was working in the salon that they went to buy clothes at.
And Trace Lissette from Transparent.
Yes, sir.
And who is this Darius?
Apparently Darius has a huge one and likes to mess around with transgendered women, but they were not having it.
Well, I mean, I think Blanca wasn't having it.
Right.
I think the other ones were like, look, he's just a good time, but have the good time.
Right, Lulu. Yeah.
There's something to be said for that, but yeah, Blanca's obviously got other stuff to occupy her time at the moment, and I don't even know what "you brick" means, but when Elektra says it, it's a great insult.
Well, it's Elektra's deliveries that she could say, "It's sunny outside," and that's like a read,
Right.
But she always has an abrupt stop. It's never like a conversation that's like, "Hey, Alonso," it's always like, "And I played Hamlet at Cambridge because I am fierce," The music. Okay, so
oh yes,
lots of great '80s music. Always good job. Whoever's doing the
it's getting better.
Yeah. What do you mean it's getting better? It's always been pretty good.
No, because we talked about this before. In that scene, you would have heard a lot more like underground house hits and fewer pop songs. So there's way too much Sugar Walls and not enough like, Is It All Over My Face?
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, the music choices are fun, but I don't know that they're necessarily correct for what you would hear at a ball. But you would totally hear "Love Is." Why am I blanking on the title? The "Love Is a Message,"
and the duet with Pretel and Blanca.
God, that was gorgeous.
It was great. They're just, Ryan Murphy has a tendency of, you start off strong. You're invested. You're along for the ride. You're trucking along, man. Choo choo, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait, what? I was hoping that wouldn't happen with Pose, and it hasn't.
Yeah, no. I think this is a thing where he is very wisely passing the reins off to Stephen Canals, to Janet Mock, who directed this episode, to Our Lady J, to Silas Howard, and letting them kind of keep the ball rolling. And yeah, no, I think the show is just getting better as it goes along. It's interesting that they did a song from The Wiz because there's a documentary called "Fabulous: The Story of Queer Cinema," and Billy Porter at one point talks about how basically he never related to the Wizard of Oz, but that Paris Is Burning was his The Wizard of Oz.
Right.
So now to have him in this show that's so much in that world is just kind of a cool, bringing it around. And as much as the white people are the least interesting people on the show, I did enjoy the fight in the office.
Right. Well, James Vanderbeek, God, Dawson's Creek. I just can't. I always see him as Dawson, and now he's playing this massive douchebag.
Yes.
And I feel bad for Stanley, Evan Peters' character, because this is someone who is wrestling with something within himself. But a lot of people at the beginning of the season were saying, oh, he's gonna beat Angel, he's gonna murder Angel.
Right.
I'm not seeing that coming.
No.
But when I saw him go back to the Peep Show, I thought, yes, this is the relationship I want to ship. And Kate Mara, I mean, the divorce papers, send them, boo, because I feel like it's a wrap on that relationship. Where else can they go? Well,
I think it becomes a thing though of is being married to Kate Mara so important for his career that he has to hang on to that, because if he can't bring Angel to a Trump, cocktail party in 1986. We're just not there. And so, if he wants to, but if he can commit to her over his, career ambitions, great. But that's going to be a whole different scenario than what we've seen.
Yeah. Well, next week we see a lot of two left before the finale, and I'm glad that they're diving into other characters within the house of Evangelista, because you have all these great characters. You have what's the Latino boy's name? Poppy, right? So we see he has an altercation with Blanca, and we get to know more about his story. So again, Ryan Murphy's doing it right.
Yeah,
doing it right.
And maybe if we can just not have any more scenes of Damon dancing, we'll be in good shape.
4 left feet, people.
And look, that guy could be a really good dancer for all I know, but how How the show presents him is not doing him any favors. He could be the greatest dancer on earth. I have no idea, but I can't tell it from this show.
And they hire a choreographer. That's the thing. They paid someone to make him look that bad. Terrible.
But for the most part, Pose is getting it right. So anyway, thank you for watching. We'll be back next week. Bye.